You were a minister the last time we had a 3-day week in an energy crisis. Now, I remember as a student being locked out of the laboratory, and had I been the sort who went to the library, I would have had to go there in daylight hours. Are we heading in that direction again?
I think that we are heading to a significant increase in inflation, which will lead to increases in interest rates. And if I was Chancellor of the Exchequer, I would be extremely worried about all the demands which are, you heard the Labour spokesman now, classic Labour spokesman, spend more money, 6 billion on the universal credit, subsidise the gas industry, plenty. And these crises in industry after industry are going to come now in fast and thick in the ensuing months. And every time there'll be a demand for more taxpayers' money. What, of course, they never tell you, but the economists are all writing about it, is that sooner or later there's going to be interest rate increases, which, of course, will impact very dramatically on very large numbers of people, particularly those with mortgages. Look, this is a very nasty situation. It's a very complicated situation. And I can well understand the government's reluctance to introduce what will always be called a temporary palliative. These palliatives are never temporary. They become built into the system. And we're already running on borrowed time, so to speak, in economic terms.
But would you take the, I won't say relaxed, but the sort of the view that your successor in what is now Department for Business and Energy and Industrial Strategy, that actually, in a way, we need to get through this and not panic, I suppose he would say. It's hard to see him, from hearing him this morning, promising a Conservative Party conference, as you did 30 years ago, that you would intervene before breakfast, tea and dinner. Are you happy with this stance of the Conservative government?
No, I'm not. I think that the urgent need is to devolve power in England to effective local community-led organisations and to pursue strategies relative to the strengths and weaknesses of those local economies. And we've missed every opportunity over the last 2 years. We've set back seriously the agenda that George Osborne and Greg Clark and David Cameron pursued when I was helping them in 10 years ago. And we're now faced with a budget in a couple of weeks and a white paper on devolution. Michael Gove's speech to the conference was very disappointing, but the levelling up agenda is totally dependent upon a change in the government's approach to the way we spend money, raise money, use money. And it is based on what civil servants in London think are the best ways forward. Whereas in every other advanced country, you have powerful local leaders who relate the available cash to the circumstances on the ground. And that is what we failed to do.
I want to come to that issue of local power and so on, but why did you find Michael Gove's speech disappointing?
Well, he didn't say anything. That's the truth of it. It was all words, no plan, no action, no detail. So we're waiting now on the white paper. I travel with optimism, as always, but I can't pretend that there are many grounds for an optimistic assessment on anything's happened so far.
Well, you've marked Mr. Gove's school report. What did you think of the Prime Minister's essay at conference?
Well, I think that he obviously wanted to get the boys and girls on side, and he succeeded in doing that. And after all, that's an important part of a party conference. I've had some experience of it. But the universal commentary, I think, is that he missed a great opportunity because, again, there was all this talk about levelling up. But the language means nothing unless you have an agenda and a set of proposals, and he didn't come up with any. Again, I repeat myself, is Michael Gove going to come up with anything in a couple of weeks' time? Fingers crossed.
Well, let's see if
I think Boris also made, well, perhaps I'm a bit oversensitive, but blaming everybody else, especially previous Conservative governments, for where we were. Well, he's got the guts, he said, to do something. Well, let's see, because so far, all we've heard are words, and words don't create wealth.
Let's see if Mr. Gove and Mr. Johnson can learn anything from the past and past experience. You won't remember this, but I did interview you more than once in the mid-1980s on this issue of devolution. And your view was that ministers had to get stuck in. I remember you taking coachloads of business leaders to Merseyside and essentially standing on the docks and saying, invest and so on. Do you think that's the sort of thing that ministers need to do now?
Well, look what happened on Merseyside. It is a place transformed. I don't like all these terrible pictures, let me say, but I can tell you that Liverpool is unrecognisable. It's the Liverpool of the 1980s. But so are many other parts of England where dramatic intervention took place. Parts of Manchester, for example, Salford and the Hume estate, the banks of the Tyne. Wherever you look where the government took positive actions, not just East London, you can see what we need to do. I mean, this is what is so frustrating that, let me make it personal. If I was in number 10 today, I would know exactly what needs to be done, and I would do it in 24 hours. And it means simply saying to the elected mayors, what is your plan? Agree it with us, and we will back it. I would say to certain other areas which ought to have elected mayors, Nottingham, Derby, the bottom of the Solent, perhaps Plymouth. We're going to create a mayoral authority there, and we will start the process of regeneration. I would then look at the counties, which I think broadly represent local economies, and I would do deals with those counties on it, providing they were unitary and they had a mayor, and they would then be part of the great regeneration of England. And what am I saying? I'm saying I would implement the 1968 Redcliffe Maud report, which was the last serious analysis of how we make this country competitive and how we run it effectively, and it would make it broadly similar to all other advanced economies of our sort.
Yes, for those viewers who are not of our vintage, Redcliffe Maud was a government-commissioned report into essentially governance, but of course it was very much focused on the idea of how we made the regions prosper and so on. But let me put it to you that you are very critical of the current government. Some people would say that you're criticising Boris Johnson's sort of cheerful boosterism, but some people would say that if you were to go back to your time in the 1970s and 1980s, what he's doing is not that far from what you tried to do, which was also boosterism.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't recognise the comparison. What I did was based on action, on decisions to create structures with local leadership, with the resources to do the job. They were called development corporations. They were called City Challenge. And it was the use of the derelict land grant in partnership with local industrial and commercial figures. All these were policy implementations. And the other characteristic which was fundamental, wherever we did anything of that sort, there was one identifiable person in charge. Now, what we've got today is a government which has in serious ways reversed the processes that David Cameron's government pushed and has put nothing positive in its place except boosterism. And boosterism, frankly, well, it's good for those who believe in you, but it's no good for people who are waiting to take positive industrial decisions, investment decisions, inward investment decisions, local strategic decisions, just saying it's going to be all right, it's going to be better. Let's just take the phrase, take back control. Now, that's what we were told Brexit would do, take back control. Can you show me any area where you think this government has actually achieved a greater degree of control? It is lurching from crisis to crisis, and it's patently not in control.
Well, next time we have the Prime Minister on, I'll ask him that. But let me just put one thing that he might say, or other Conservative ministers might say, that the principal effect of all the cash that you poured into Merseyside and you're now suggesting should be given, for example, to mayors like Andy Burnham, is to hand money, as you did, to militant-dominated councils, make Derek Hatton a household name, and that what Tories might reasonably fear now is that all you're going to do is make levelling up mean more cash for Labour councils.
Well, I think you probably can't have been to Manchester very recently, or to Liverpool, or to the West Midlands, or to Tees Valley, or to Newcastle, or wherever you like, where these interventions are now factual, working, have brought about dramatic change. So I'm afraid we're not on the same planet when you look at what has happened. Now, just take the fundamental issue of Derek Hatton, who came, incidentally, after I had done the various interventions in Liverpool initially. And the answer to your question is this. Levelling up is not a question of saying, here's the cash, you get on with it. It is effectively creating a partnership between the government departments in Whitehall and the local elected mayor in the area we're talking about. And so there isn't a capacity for a local mayor to say, I've got the money, we're going to nationalise everything inside, we're going to do whatever mayors of that characterisation would do. They can't do it. They can only get agreement for their strategies if the government approves them. And that, but the point is, instead of being individual ideas from individual spending departments, transport, housing, education, whatever it is, they become part of a local strategy relevant to the different circumstances of every different conurbation. That's a very important step. And so, as I said, every other advanced economy in the world works on this basis and works effectively on this basis. We have a situation where London works out the ideas they think and then imposes them by the use of cash grants.